Holy moly, we are live again. It's 7 o'clock. It's April 11th, 2023. My gosh, my gosh, my gosh. Welcome to quarter two of an epic 2023 already. Are you excited? I'm so excited for you because we're here for another show of Marketing Made Easy. My name is Joey Ragona. If you've never heard of me or seen me, welcome. My friend Scott Vogel is over there in the other box that just came flying through. If you haven't heard of him or seen him, we together are the marketing duo for of Marketing Made Easy. So there you go. What an intro right there. That's a different one. I don't know.
That was quite a different intro, Joey. That is normal, but hey, and I just realized I look like my picture tonight. I'm clean shaven. I'm wearing a black shirt. That's my picture. But Joey, I got to tell you,
We called each other and said, "What are you wearing today?" Okay.
I got to tell you how excited I am, Joey, and I think everybody in the online entrepreneurial digital marketing space should be like so excited with the onset of this new technology.
With the new technology as he freezes.
This week. Literally in minutes, it created all of my modules and my sessions and all my copy. And I'm like,
We heard nothing, bro. By the way, you froze. Like you just, yeah, it was so classic. You got to go watch back the recording. It was like this. You got to love the technology.
okay, so am I
And then
live?
there was nothing.
Am I back again?
You're back.
Okay, so anyway, exciting times. Gotta love technology, all this stuff, and it's an incredible time for online marketers and entrepreneurs. Like this whole Chat GPD thingy. I went into Kajabi and I put in the title of a product, and when I opened the product, it made me my subheaders, it made me my sections, it put the copy in, it did everything for me. I was like, I ain't got to do nothing here. And so I'm like, wait a second. I could put in 100 titles and have 100 products. All I got to do is sell 1,000 of each one at $10. That's $1,000,000. And then what makes it even better, Joey, I can go get an AI robot person, take all that, and it'll do the voiceover for me. Then I could have that voice and that person talk to everybody. I don't ever have to do anything again. This is simply amazing, Joey.
Uh, I don't know where you're going with this. I really don't know where you're going with this. Whether you're really excited or whether it's sarcastic, I don't know.
So
I'm a loss.
basically, Joey, that means I don't ever have to talk to a dream client again and interview them and find out what really their language. I can just throw all that away and put more crap out there into the ether of the multiverse and just anyway. Obviously, a lot of sarcasm there.
Okay, good.
I have just for anybody watching live, hit live, hashtag replay. You could hit the sarcasm bell, but it's just crazy. And last night I had the opportunity to interview a bride and a groom about for a client because they are dream clients, perfect ones. And it was just magical because no matter how much I interviewed the client and did my research, until I spoke to the client's dream client, and they were able to tell me things that no AI can ever possibly tell me about, this experience or this aha, or when, the expression on somebody's face when this happened. And it's like, So we were talking before about using the AI to access our own content and get our content better. So anyway, thank you for allowing me to get my sarcasm out for the day.
One day, I think we should have like like where AI is good for us, where it isn't
Yeah,
good for us. I think we've already peppered that into our conversations, but it's all perspective as well too. But you're right. We had Kevin Thompson on today on the Academy,
yeah,
and we started off with that conversation. Whereas, with technology and AI, our relationships, connections, how important are they? And he 100%, 1000% agreed that it was even more that it's important to have building relationships, one-on-one connections, that kind of thing in this age of technology and AI. And, you know, you and I both know that that's where, I mean, that's so true. It's always been like that, but then it got, kerfuffled for me, if that's really a word, a little while ago. I even remember back a couple of years ago, not couple, actually, a long time ago, which was around 2012 or so, with my very first coach. And he had this way that what he did is in terms of relationships or connections, he would never give his card out to people. He would always take their card. And I think I mentioned this before. And anyways, just basically, it wasn't not that didn't want to, he wanted to disconnect with people, but it was like you couldn't have that one-on-one conversation unless he initiated. So I adopted that, and for years I carried that, and it worked really, really well. But then, as you know, things have changed, and now it's the opposite. I'm always on building relationships, learning more about clients, learning more about what they're saying, and having in the conversation. And one of the things that he said today too, which was I'm really happy about, was engaging in the conversation is like whether or not you have a starter line or whatever it is to start a conversation or something. And we talk a lot about the message navigator. Like every time I talk about that thing, I'm always emphasizing to people, yes, these are prompts. These are for people like me who are not necessarily outgoing, social butterflies, and we get caught in the like, now what do I say type of thing. They're just prompts. They're not scripts. They're not things. What happens is that in between those things is like start the conversation, and you may not even get to the rest of them. It's just like engage in the conversation. That's the key of the building of the relationship, making it about the other person.
Totally and completely 100% agree. And you've taught me to do that even better than I even used to do it, with messages, with emails, with short things, and not having to have it all happen and unfold at the same time. And multiple conversations, even with clients, continual conversations like you do, and getting languaging and like, that person just said that on Messenger, that goes in here into my swipe file for
Right,
theirs.
right, right.
And again, last night when I spoke to there was no way I was going to find that anywhere. And I spent hours with the client. And I've even spent hundreds of hours in that industry interviewing people years ago. And what I got was from a different angle, totally new and fresh. And that's the relationship building. And that's what you do well. I do it well, is build relationships. And going into the three pillars is to, curate the tribe, serve them, and respect their timeline. And it's about, that's what the message navigator is about. And that's what healthy human communication is about, is respecting the time. And again, without getting into that conversation, I don't think AI does that, because it pushes the relationship at a different speed than I think it should happen.
Right. Today, switching gears, I want to talk today about the 5% group. And the 5% group is, where many of the most successful people are. That's where they live, in that 5%, because they do so many things that are different. But I don't necessarily want to talk too much about, I guess we could, like, what they do. It's more about the mindset of how to get there in the first place. And I think that's really important, because I talk to people every day, as you know, and a lot of it is mindset. A lot of it is, and it's not only mindset too. It's because there's so many things happening in their world, and I get it because I come from that area, and there's a lot of things happening in their world that affects their mindset. Even if the theory of it is there, that like I gotta, I'll just use examples of focus. I got to do one thing. And that's hard to do when there's a lot of other things pulling at you, financial situations, whatever it is, right? But there's this, I looked at some notes today that kind of sparked this topic. And it was when I was in a mastermind with Peter Diamandis. Do you know who Peter Diamandis is?
I don't know him. I've heard of him. So,
Yeah, I don't know Peter, but I was in a mastermind with him. I mean, I was blessed to be there. But I remember, and I wrote this down, and I wrote it down here because I wanted to make sure I got this right. He said, and this was in 20, again, it was around 2012 or something like that. He said, creating a breakthrough is a huge risk, but most people are risk adverse. And I'll read that again. Creating a breakthrough is a huge risk, but most people are risk adverse. And I wrote that down, and it's so prevalent today because anyone who's listening right now, I would guess that you want to make an impact in the world. And to make an impact, I hear these words all the time. So are we saying them just verbatim? Is like, okay, well, that's everybody else says this. I'm going to say, this is what I want to do. But it's really breakthroughs. And we talked a little bit about breakthrough before we went live with a couple of people that are in Atlas. And we were mentioning a few people and how you're seeing breakthroughs and this and that. And I see that every day. And I know I can predict when breakthroughs are going to happen now. I've been doing it for so long. And it's not because I'm better than anybody else. It's only because I stick to it. And this is what it's about. Like I don't think I'm yet in that major 5%, but in terms of the work ethic or, you know, sticking to one thing, doing it, that I definitely am in the 5% of that. So, and that leads to getting people the actual breakthroughs. So and that's what I want to talk about is that whole area of like, what are you doing it for? What's it for? And how do you get to the 5%? So I'll stop there. And I'd love to hear from anybody else who's listening or in the comments as well. Welcome, by the way. If you're here, hashtag live, let us know, hashtag live or hashtag replay. Let us know that you're here. And I'm also going to invite you into the Facebook group. If you'd love to join us in the Facebook group, that would be amazing. That's where we join. We have a lot of conversations in between these live sessions. But any thoughts on, back to you, Scott, what I just said?
Well, what I'd like to first address is what you said that the breakthrough is a huge risk, and most people are risk averse. And it goes to the richest place on the planet is the graveyard because most people will take their ideas with them because they're too afraid to take the risk and put it out there for fear that it may not work. Whereas you have to take risks and put it out there. And it takes courage to do a lot what we do, to put things out there. What you did when you started all this Atlas stuff, and people are like, maybe you're crazy, Joey. And you're like, maybe so, but this is how I need to do it. And it takes courage to do that. And that's taking risks. And a lot of people, it's uncomfortable to be in that place and then to push it through. So I like what you said about that. And, staying in that 5% is, yeah, that's focus, that's commitment, that's accountability, that's dedication. Because their life is going to happen, and it does every day. And it's how do we stay focused in that? So I'm going to put it back to you now.
Yeah, thank you for that. And you're right about it because I think one of the things that I see a lot of is most of the world and even entrepreneurs, I'll call them wantrepreneurs, is they
Is
want a
that a
sure
word?
thing.
Did you just make
Want
that one up?
Wantrepreneur I've used a little while. I don't know. I don't think I made it up, but I've said it way before. I haven't said it anywhere in any of our conversations yet, but it's been in my vocabulary for a few years.
I
But
like it. I like it.
a wantrepreneur, they want a sure thing. They're not really an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is someone who actually rolls the dice. The world or the entrepreneur waits for the sure thing, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm an entrepreneur, but." Right, and they've got that but an entrepreneur, we're crazy. Like, and I'm not saying go out and mortgage your house or anything like this, but we're crazy. We roll the dice, and when it doesn't work, it's like, okay, that didn't work. What else can I do here? And so it's like when I'm thinking about or fearful of the unknown, I think that's one of my superpowers, man. Is like I look in this and I look fear in the face and I say, screw you. Like, this is not going to work. Even if I'm down for like a day or two, but I always look back at, I'm not worried about what people will think. And you just mentioned it now. When I first brought Atlas into play, there was a lot of people in my world and even my close world that said, you're crazy. This is not going to work. Why would you do that? Thinking that, well, you guys should be supporting me. Like, you're also an entrepreneur, but you don't support me, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And it was just rolling the dice. And so that's moving into the 5%. Like, what does it take to get to that 5%? And I'd love to hear from everybody else, isn't it? Who's watching this live and even on the replay. Like, what do you think it takes to get to the 5%? And what does it mean to you?
One of the things, Joey, that it reminds me of, you and I bring up Dean Jackson a lot, brilliant marketer, and he defines courage as the ability to get into that place, and instead of being in it for weeks or days, to get it down to the point where when those distractions or unpleasantries or fear come, that you can move through it in minutes instead of holding on to it for hours, days, or weeks. And that's what it is here, is saying to the fear, ain't going to happen. And I'm going to just go get this done. And like you said, piss off.
Exactly. Jeffrey says, I have found for myself that when I look back, anytime I've taken on a risk and faced my fear, I always reached a time when I said, hey, that was no big deal. Isn't that so true? Isn't that so true? And always the history of what we've done, because the first one is always the hardest, right? The first time you go live, the first time you make a video, and all these other things. And doing this, the first time you take a risk and it wasn't as bad, because we have a really good imagination. That's what we're built to do, is imagine. And unfortunately, we imagine as we get adults only the bad things that can happen to us. We stop imagining the great things. Like, here, man, if I do this, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if? What if? What if? Well, why don't you turn that into positivity? Or why don't you look back at the last thing you were totally scared about that didn't really pan out to anything close to what you imagined, but we continue to do it to ourselves?
In the Dale Carnegie program, when they talk about control of stress and worry, and I think I froze again. How did
No, we can still hear you. Maybe we did maybe we did lose him. Technology, you gotta love it. Yep, looks like we lost him. That's okay. He'll be back soon. Just tap right back into 5G. So we're talking today about there he is. All right, cool.
I have no idea what happened. Technology just did its thing.
That's okay, man.
So
That's
yes,
the way
I
it is.
was freezing. I'm even on the big stuff, and it's still freezing. Oh well, it's supposed to happen. What were we talking about, Joey? What were
I
we
don't know.
talking
You're
about?
going to make a major point.
I was going to make a major point, and then I froze, and the point went away. What were we talking about? Bring me
Okay,
back.
that'll come back. I even forget about what I forgot we were talking about. Yeah, lost my train of thought. Let's see here. Rob, reduce worry by knowing what's the worst that can happen. That's what we were talking about. Thank you, Rob. Reduce worry by knowing what's the worst that can happen, and then now you know, and that takes away a lot of the fear. Yeah, it's true, man. That's one of I think that when I'm looking at the future too, is one of my one of the ways I deal with it is, can I handle the worst that I can imagine? And then if I can do that and handle it, then I'm going to move forward, because I've already accepted the worst that can happen. I don't do it very often anymore because, again, with this whole, quantum field energy and all that stuff, I don't want to put a lot of that out into the universe, but that's part of what I imagine would say, okay, if this is the worst that's going to happen, then I'm going to identify it and then leave it alone and never think about it again. And if it shows up, it shows up, but it rarely ever does. Never. Actually has never happened. But thank you.
So I remember my point, Joey.
Go ahead, my
In the
friend.
Dale, yeah, Rob, the Dale Carnegie organization, exactly. When they go over in the control of stress and worry, it's 90% of the things we worry about never happen,
Yeah.
and the 10% of those we are fully equipped to deal with it, because that's what we do. And the challenge with all of that is, because it's an unknown. If we've experienced it before and gone through it, then it's already done there. There's no fear, there's no anything. But because, as whatever you want to call what we do, entrepreneurs as opposed to entrepreneurs, and I really like that word, is we're willing to go out there and take a chance and do something and do a little bit different to see what's on the other side, because the known is finite and limited, and that's all we have to make decisions on. We can't make decisions on what's outside of our field of knowledge in the limitlessness, except when we engage with somebody like Meadow, who takes us out there to engage in that and bring it back in. It's like when somebody once said you can't think outside the box. I'm like, no, you really can't. You can go outside the box and get cool stuff and bring it back in and make your box bigger. So for me, that piece is really about, okay, what control do I have and what possibly can I do? And if I think about it and I can't figure it out for more than 5 or 10 minutes, then I go call somebody. That's all.
Yeah. And I love what Jeffrey says. Shaved your beard and you lost the extra reception. I love
Yeah,
it.
that's what it is, Jeffrey. It was
So
the
do
beard.
you like what are your thoughts on like how do you like move into the 5%? How would you
Okay.
tell somebody to move into the or suggest? And or
For
maybe give
me,
us examples of how you've done it.
I'll do it exactly how I do it. For me, first of all, as silly as it is, planks. These days, it's planks for me. When I get like jammed up, or that is, I go do a plank minute. That gets breathe, it gets me away from it, and it means I have to get back into where I need to be. Think time. You and I talk about this all the time. I've got to go think time. If I don't have my think time, there were a few days this week where I was at it and I was like, I did not spend time in my think time. My mantras, my zone of genius, and my mantras are self talk, affirmations. You and I talk about those. And if I'm in a place, I need to reframe my mind by going into my mantras and my think time and my planks. I have to do something to knock my mind out to get back into the 5%. And that's what I do. Or I do a prayer. I'll I'll open up my Bible and just open it up and say, okay. And at least I'm connecting back with something, source, God, whatever you want to call it, or zone of genius. And that's what I do frequently throughout the day to get back into that 5%. What about you?
Um yeah, it's I think that success habits are really really important to stay there. To get there is a different story. To get there is hard. And so that's what I'll share that piece of it first. Because there's probably someone, at least one person listening to this, who may not be there yet, and are getting to the 5%. So it comes down to I'll reference Simon Sinek, which is the why. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing, and what is it all about? And one of the things that helped me was going back to the copy, if you want to reference copy, where you're looking for fears and frustrations and wants and aspirations. And if you simply are getting frustrated or distracted or whatever you want to use, it's having that reference of why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And it sounds so simple, but how many of you listening right now have actually a piece of paper or a document that you can refer to that resets your brain to say, this is why. And that's the first step. So this is very easy. Anybody can do this. Even right now, you can start doing this by having a simple sheet of paper with a line down the middle and one on one side, and you do this for two sections. One side is fears and frustrations. What are you fearful about? What are your frustrations going on right now? And wants and aspirations. What do you want? So this is all about you, and being very honest about what it is. I'm fearful of that if my business doesn't work, I'm going to have to go get a job. Like these kind of things, and circle which one really motivates you. Because there's two different things between what I understand about motivation, and a lot of people ask, how do I motivate myself to move forward? How do I motivate myself to get up every day and move toward the 5%? And there is motivation. That's kind of motivation, but I think inspiration is way more powerful. And once I learned the difference between motivation and inspiration, everything changed. Because motivation is, as you know, something that pushes you. Could be someone, and it's a something, and there's nothing wrong with that. But a lot of times, motivation ends, right? You go to the gym, the dude pushes you, and you're like, that was great. And then the next morning, you're like, I don't want to go to the gym. But then you get up for whatever reason, and you go, and he pushes you again. And you're like, okay, that was great. But imagine if you had both of those. Imagine if you had the inspiration. I'm inspired to go to the gym, which pulls me to the gym because I just want to look great and feel healthy, or whatever it is for you. I want to lose weight to get back into my bikini shape. I know you want to get back into your bikini shape, right, Scott? So,
Thank you,
right?
Joey,
It's like
for
there's a
remembering.
whole difference. Is knowing
Yeah.
what inspires you to pull you to get into the 5% or to whatever it is you're doing. That's step number one. Now, I'll leave it there for a second, then I'll continue if you have any
Well,
thoughts.
I want to reaffirm that and share with you that, I mean, on one of my monitors, I have my what's going on every day. It's my calendar, it's my planks, it's my to-dos, it's my projects, and it's got my, my fears and frustrations and my wants and aspirations on the other side, so that I look at those and it's kind of like, why am I doing this? And I have my ikigai here as well. And that's sitting on this monitor and I'm looking at it all day long. So, you know, going on what you're saying is it's kind of my tool that's right there in my face all the time. That like I'm like, yeah, it's like, okay, why are you doing this? And it's right there. I don't have to go look for something. Everything I do is in one place. And that's just evolved over the past couple of weeks in doing this and adding that piece to it of here's what I'm afraid of and here's what I want and looking at it and why am I doing this. So I appreciate it. And just again, that's how I do it, is on something all the time, so it's always there, how to get into it. And then it's the getting into it as well, because I'll be looking at it going, okay, this is not, and no, I got to do this and it's right here, so you take it.
Yeah, well, I think that for because there's going to be a time when we are, it's hard to get moving to do something, whatever it is, and that list, or even if it's because it's embedded in my brain why I do things, I already know what's there because I've talked about it and I do have my list, but I don't have it up on a monitor all day. But when somebody asks me what it's all about, I can rip it all off. There's no problem at all. And it's not like it's memorized, it's just part of who I am. Which brings me to the next piece, which is you do the same thing for others. So there's two sections of your fears and frustrations and wants and aspirations. There's the me section, and then there's the others section, which is your dream clients, your community, your family. What are their fears and frustrations, and are you connected to those? And what are their wants and aspirations, and are you connected to those? So and then when you have all that in front of you and you're looking at this, and if you've done the work and you truly are, and if you're not just writing stuff down because Joey said to do this or Scott said this is a great exercise and I have stuff on my monitor, I'll do that too. Well, no, if you're truly doing it and you're truly connecting to it and you're being honest with yourself, because I don't really care what's on it for you, but what I care about are you connected to it? Is it truly what inspires and motivates you to do what it is you're doing? And by the way, let's bring the elephant in the room to surface. If all it is about money, then there's something wrong, in my opinion. Because if everything is about money, as soon as the challenges and obstacles show up, you're going to look for the path to least resistance. And so there has to be a deeper connection to the money. And to me, this is where, and I don't know about you, Scott, but for me, and somebody else listening to this, and I know you probably, yeah, I've heard that a billion times before, but, I need money, I need money, I need money. I get that. I totally get that. And I used to have a challenge with that too, because I'm like, well, it can't be about money because that's not the right thing to do. Well, it is about money for the impact, for the other things that are on that others area. Does that make sense? The others area is what opened the world for me. Is like, who are the dream clients? We can get all to that too. Here's the people I'm trying to impact, and here's what their frustrations are, and here's where my superpowers can come in, and here's what I can give them and their wants and aspirations. And holy crap, if my business makes a whole bunch of money that I can get to these people, right? Like everybody wins. So it's all kind of this mirage. Not a mirage. That's the wrong word. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? Um, is it mirage? What's the thing? That's collage. That's it. That's what I'm looking for. Collage. It's this collage of like epic things that are going on and eliminating the fears and frustrations.
I like that collage of epic things.
Yeah. What do you have? A collage of epic things.
I got a collage of epic things, and Joey, again, I like I like how you doing. You're also doing this for once we learn it for ourselves, then it's easier for us to do it. And I'll read Jeffrey's if I may.
Please.
Uh, so Jeffrey says, my dad always taught me to ask myself, what do I really have to lose here? I then write down what I fear I will lose, then what I will gain. Yeah, brilliant, Jeffrey. It's
Love that.
exactly.
And thank you, Lorna. I'm loving that you love the discussion. And please have some input here. Let us know what your fears or frustrations are, or your thoughts, anything like that that come to mind. Or is this making sense to you, or do you think that this is just crazy stuff? But this is,
Joey,
you know,
adding to that, it's just kind of like, okay, what's the worst thing that can possibly happen? And you write down, okay, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen. Like, okay, well, if that happened, well, I do that. What if I do that? I call Joey. I did this, and I figure it out. It's the challenge, I believe, is it sits in our head instead of, okay, let me make a list of all the things that could possibly happen and what I'm afraid of, just like you said.
yeah.
And then it's like, really? Because when it sits in our head, that's the dangerous place. When you get it out on paper and you really put it down and go, that wasn't, yeah, I could give that a shot, and share it with somebody else. That's huge. Because when you share it, it's like, hey, Joey, I'm afraid of this. And you're like, tell me more about it. Well, isn't that? Then I'm like, wait a second. It's not really that bad. When it stays in our minds, that's the dangerous place.
Yeah, and you're right. I like that you brought that up too, because that's another area where I had to learn to bring my problems or
Oh,
vulnerabilities
come on.
or just
Really?
brainstorm to others. And I thought that I could do it all on my own because that's the way I grew up. It was like I'm a one man show. I don't need any help and all this other stuff. And it was really important to bring that to invest in myself way back then in 2012. I think it was my very first. No, it was even before that. No, it was 2012. Yeah, it was 2000. I'm thinking of the moment when I decided to change my brain, which was 2007. And then 4 years later, I actually put real money down into my first coach, and I'll never look back. And then now it just seems so odd when I hear somebody say they're not going to invest in themselves until they start making money or whatever. But at the same time, I totally get it. But I'm so far removed from that now. I get it, but I'm at the point where I don't understand it anymore because it doesn't make any sense. But I empathize and I kind of understand it now.
Yeah, I was in a conversation today and I was just kind of reviewing like when I was in the speaking world, and I was like, I loved Yannick Silver, and I met him and I went and hung out with him for a half a day and paid him a couple of grand. And Alex Mondosian was also at the event. I went and hung out with him for a weekend at his house and paid him a couple of grand. And I just would just keep investing, and I don't necessarily know that I had it. Fortunately, then I was getting paid well as a speaker, but I just kept throwing it back into the product of me. And it's the same thing now is you do it all the time, Joey. You read, you go to seminars, you go to masterminds, you have coaches, and that just keeps bringing you up. And Lorna has a comment here. Would you like to read it, Joey?
No, I'll let you.
I've struggled with the money aspect. I just want to help. But to do that, I need to eat and have a roof over my head. I'm getting better at seeing the link between money and impact. I believe it and encourage others to believe it. Still, a challenge for me to do it. And thank you, Lorna, for being vulnerable. And that's with a lot of people is struggling with that. And it's like, well, I want to do it for free and I want to help everybody. If you really want to help the world, in my opinion, unless you're Mother Teresa, is make a lot of money and then go. help people and give it away, or do like Oprah does and build schools, or whoever. And if you want to help a certain population, then make a bunch of money and do a scholarship or do something. But by just giving it away, I think we drain ourselves and our energy that enable us to truly help people if we give it away, because then there's no give and take and there's no transformational investment. And I believe that there has to be that in order for both sides to win. And it's got to be both sides to win.
Yeah, I'm the whole impact thing or givers, like we have this thing inside of us that we just like to give. I've shared this before. I'll share it again, and I'm only going to say this because it's relevant to the conversation. I don't want to say this in a way that I don't know how to preface this, but there's one thing that I do like to do every now and then where I'd like to just pay for someone's meals or breakfasts and stuff like that, right? And I'm not trying to say this just to say like, look at me. I'm just trying to reference this as the giving part of it and having money to do that. And it doesn't have to be billions of dollars, but to you, Lorna, and anybody else who has a challenge with making money or whatever that is, when you don't have any financial or less financial stress, I can't begin. I'm sure you already know, but I mean, every time I do that, Scott, I get into this bliss of a feeling, and it has nothing to do with recognition. That's why I don't want it. That's why I'm not trying to say this to get recognition, to say you're such a great person, and I don't do it for that either. It really makes me feel awesome, and I don't, and I do it where it's a random person. Like I go in and I pick up my meal and I say, pick a check, and I'm going to pay for a check. I don't care who it is, and they look at me like I got two heads, and they're like, like I go, I don't care which one it is, just pick an open check, and I want to pay for it. And I pay for it and I walk out, and they always say that, thank you, you're a great person and this and that. I don't do it for that. Like I truly walk away because I was able to give and impact the world in a way that I have no idea how it was impacted. With all of those people that go on and tell that story or tell a story to their friend, or maybe it was to a jerk who just didn't appreciate it for that time. And maybe that'll change them later on in life. I don't really know. But the point is that when you make money and you're able to give in a way that you want to give, Lorna and everybody else thinking, however you want to give, it's such a different way of looking at making money. I'll stop there.
And thank you for sharing that, Joey. And I did not take it as bragging in that. And it's kind of like it's the pay it forward. And I do it, and I love doing it. And when I'm struggling, I probably don't buy coffee. But when I'm doing well, I go get my maple lattes. And if somebody makes an amazing one, I don't make a big deal of it, but I'll leave a huge tip in the jar.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, look. And then when they go count, they're like, oh my God, that was, or like you do, it's just, why don't you take care of that meal or something? I don't want anybody to know. Or
No.
occasionally, like if there's a special event at the yoga studio, I'll say, here's 2 spaces, give them away to somebody that can't afford it.
Yeah.
And it's not about, it's about doing it for the sake of doing it. And that's what you can do when you have money. You can help people in those different ways rather than be like, God, I wish I could. So I
Yeah, well, this is
appreciate.
part of, I don't know for you, Scott, like this is what's on my others list. Like this is what lights me up. Like for me, money, I've always said it. Like, and you hear a lot of people say, well, if I was rich and didn't have to worry about money and everything, I'd still do what I would be doing. Well, yeah, I've heard that before, but I truly will. You know that to the day I die. No matter what, bro, how much I could be rich and own islands all over the world, and I'll still be doing exactly what I do every single day. I know that because it's deep with who I am. But that other part of, and to that point, if I did have zero money problems and had all the money in the world, the very first thing I would be doing is giving all of it away, is to more and more and more people, because I just don't want people to suffer. I want people to have the same as I do, and I know that's impossible, but I want it to be exactly the same as, like, I don't like, I want everybody to be equal. And if I can contribute to that by making someone's life better, then that's what it's about for me, a part of it, what it's about. And now we're getting into
And
a whole different topic, but I think it's important. Thank you for bringing that up,
well, I
Florida.
mean, in our 5% sometimes, and I love to cook, Joey, and I'll make like these amazing dishes or brownies or blondies or muffins or something because they're healthy, organic, and I give them away. Why? Because I love doing it, and I
Mm-hmm.
love eating people healthy, organic, nutritious, delicious food, and it brings me joy to feed others. That's why I love being in the restaurant business, because I love serving and I love feeding people. It's the purest way of serving, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I just made another batch of muffins, and now I'll go to yoga and go like here's muffins, and this because I love it, and now I can go, Joey.
Meadow loves giving gifts. I love that. I love that about you. And there's so many different ways of giving gifts. And so, yeah, like, I mean, this is, I think, part of getting to the 5% as well, is by just being a giving person instead of worrying about what are we going to get from it. So, I don't know. I'm trying to bring this back to the conversation of like getting to the 5%. Uh, with any concrete ways that you're doing things. I know you mentioned you're like, you have your stuff up and you do your mantras and all the other stuff. Is there, like, how long? Let's talk about the length of time, because that's a big one. Whereas, like, how long is it ever going to take me to get to where I want to be? And I think that I was journaling the other day about this, Scott, because I want to do a post about it. But I guess I'll reveal it here. My thoughts, because I get that the question all the time. In Atlas, it happens all the time too. You know it, right? Like, how long is this going to take, or how long? And I get that. It's a question it's a relevant question. I get that, but at the same time, I'm like, how long does a karate katra take? A katra, like, how long does it take you to perfect a katra? And you know what a katra is, right?
Yeah,
So, how long does it take you to perfect that?
years, and you
And
don't
how
ever
do you do
perfect
it?
it
And how do you
over
do that?
and you have to do it over and over again and study it and practice it and go to your teacher and have your teacher review it and correct you until you've got it and becomes a part of you. And then and only then do you actually start to perform and practice the kata. It takes a long time. Same thing I equated to a yoga posture. I may be able to get into the yoga posture. It might take me a year or two to then just get into it to be ready to do what I'm supposed to be doing in it. I took Tai Chi and I've done all, karate and that. And it's a journey, and this too is a journey. And I believe that pomodoros, in my opinion, are an important part of the 5%. What do you think?
I for 100%, 100%. The Let me go back to the katra. The katra is a series of moves. If someone listening doesn't know what it is, but it's a series of precise movements, and it's like this performance, whatever you want to call it. It's your signature move of several moves put together. But those several moves don't happen all overnight, and you start by doing one of them. You perfect one of the moves over and over and over again, and then you add another into the move, and then you add another, and that's where this whole thing of time comes into play for me. It's like, well, it's like Bruce Lee said. I think it was Bruce Lee who said he doesn't fear somebody who can practice 10,000 moves over and over again. He said he's afraid of the one person who practices one move 10,000 times over and over again. And that is what we're doing here to move into the 5%, is what's the one thing that you're doing right now. And it doesn't mean for years. Sometimes it could mean for what this quarter. What is the quarter? What is the one thing that you're doing that moves you toward the goal of this year? And this is what I mean by moving into the 5%, because I've been training entrepreneurs since 2014. And one of the things I found is that when we have a goal and we put all these goals down in 12 months or something, it never got done because there was too many distractions. But as soon as we started moving into what's the quarter goal, what's the big goal, we got this, what's the thing that we want to get to in this year, but now we're breaking it down into this monthly or these 3 months. What is the one or two things that you're going to get done and nothing else? And that's what has helped me move into the 5% is focus.
Well, and I think, Joey, what you're doing also is, and I talked last week about it somewhere else, was the power of one. And I think you're focusing on that as well in this whole 5% is what is the one thing? And again, let's bring up dream client. Who is the one dream client we're going to focus on? And what is the one thing we're going to focus on in our 5% so that we can master it? And I think that's the important piece of what you're saying here is if we have a simple one-minded approach of something to get to, it's easier to get to it rather than, oh my God, I got these 25 things. And you know me, I sometimes have way too many things going on. And to simplify it, which is your expertise and superpower zone of genius, is okay, what is that one thing? And I think it's easier to focus at 5% when it is one thing rather than I've got 100 things to do. What am I going to do? How am I going to get them all done? Go.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because you just, circled right back to what we talked about at the top of the hour. We're not done yet, but just in case you're just joining us, I mentioned Peter Diamandis, and one thing I wrote down in one of my notebooks back then, it was in a mastermind with him, was that he said creating a breakthrough is a huge risk, but most people are risk adverse, so they're not willing to do that. So, are you willing to do one thing in order to create a breakthrough? And that does whatever breakthrough means for you, breakthrough for the world, a breakthrough for you, for your family, for your community, whatever it is. In this case, it's a breakthrough, and it's moving into the 5% of people who are truly impacting the world. And it just takes discipline. It takes as long as it takes. I know we've talked about Malcolm Gladwell and 10,000 hours and all these other things. And I love 10,000 hours and outliers and all that. But if you look online, there's always going to be another debate about, is it really true? Do you need 10,000 hours or not? So that's the reason why I started thinking about this. And I go, yeah, it's important to have a lot of expertise and experience and all that stuff. However, then I thought about looking at the katra. And the katra never ends. The katra is always getting better. It's more than 10,000 hours the people are putting in for a true katra. It's always better. There's always another move that they're adding to make it one step better.
And there's also a level of each move. The deeper you get into each move, you go deeper into it. You don't just get to a point and say, okay, I got it. Just the focus and concentration in that. And I wrote down, Joey, is I think it's a risk to make breakthroughs. As we talk about this, that people are risk averse to making breakthroughs, and that the 5% is about focusing and having discipline. And are you willing to risk focusing on one thing? That's a risk for people. Well, what if I only focus on one thing and it doesn't work? Well, what if you focus on 5 things and you really don't give your attention to the one thing to see if it could work? So
Well, hold on a minute. So if so I think there's semantics here. It's really the risk is, to me, what you're saying. Are you willing to risk opportunities or
Yeah.
what you believe are opportunities for one thing? Because you can't be focused when you're on 5 things, right? That's the opposite of being focused.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so then would you agree that it's like you're willing to take a risk on not taking the opportunities that that you believe are opportunities, and staying true to what you said you were going to stay true. That is my perception of what you just said.
And that's exactly what I just said differently, but exactly it, because it is about that. It's about, well, but I got this, little $47 thingy that I can sell, and I've got this coaching program, and I got this, and I got a membership, and I got that, and if I get that like I started out with, I could go put up 100 different thingies with 100 people and have 1,000, blah, 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 blah. And but no, it's coming back to this and saying, what if I did focus on one thing and just kept getting kata better at it, adding a move? You did that with Atlas, Joey. It started
Mm-hmm.
with the MC, and then you added another thing, and then another thing, and then all these things, and then each iteration of the cohort, it's like you add another thing because you keep perfecting the kata. It just gets better, and then you add a piece, and nobody can do it like you. Period. Can't. So fully,
Thanks, man.
yeah.
Yeah, it's. I think that if you truly want to get to the level of success with simplicity, it is about one thing. The 5% is where entrepreneurs live, and they are the 5%. The entrepreneurs are the 5%. So if you consider yourself an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur, then it's going to take risks. It's going to take a lot of discipline, which is really, really hard because there's so many opportunities, and we're just naturally problem solvers and we look to solve everything. But the 5% are the people who know exactly what their true worth to the market is, what their true value is, and they're focused only on that, and that's what they are known to do or known for. I think that's the most important thing. And that's why it goes back to what am I doing this for? Why am I doing this?
So
And
Joey,
you have to know your why.
and I just typed something into my sheet, and because I like what you said, what is your worth and true value to the market? I think that's part of our why is if you're not in the 5%, then what's your value and true worth to the market?
Yeah. And you're right, because the true value to the market is will be defined or validated by the market. And this is not just let's put up a course to see if it works type of thing, but it's as I'm listening to myself talk and we're talking this out and brainstorming here, that's a lot of what I do every single day with people is I'm making them or helping them understand yeah, Atlas and all that is the beta product and all these things to do that and get validation and all these things. But it's really challenging people to say, what is it that you're doing for whom? And how do they fit into your life and why?
Well, which kind of goes back to go figure dream clients, one dream client.
Yes,
It intertwines with everything. And if you are focusing on just that one dream client and you're in that 5%, then things become easier.
100%. So if you're not willing to step into a straight and narrow path and to challenge the path of resistance and looking for other areas, then that's like a entrepreneur for me. It's like I want this, but I'm not willing to do this because it's not a sure thing. I don't know. And there's too many challenges. I don't know what the unknown is. An entrepreneur, in my definition, is someone who is willing to roll the dice over and over and over again and get feedback on it. What happened? Why did that happen?
Yeah. Throwing it out there and seeing how it's going to work and getting feedback in a beta and getting your dream clients to. I was having a conversation today, Joey, and your voice was ringing in my head. And it was like, well, why don't you just go talk to a bunch of people and ask them what's going on and their challenges and frustration? Because they were like, well, what if I together a thing with this and this and this and this and this and asked them which one they wanted? I was like, no, because you're stacking the deck by saying, which of these is more important to you? You'd be like, I don't know, I'll pick that one. Instead of what are your challenges and obstacles and what have you done to try and solve it and that, and then finding out and having more conversations with them. And, then we spend more time in the 5% because the 5% is just about staying focused. And I like the topic this evening, Joey.
Yeah, same here. Um, Thank you for the conversation. Thank you for being here, by the way. Hashtag live, hashtag replay. If you haven't already put that in, we would love to have you inside the Facebook group. This is where you get into the Facebook group. If you're heart centered and here on a mission to serve the world, and impact the world, which is part of this all, as you know. So, what are you willing to do and who are you willing to do this for? That's part of it. And if you're that person, we would love to have you inside the Facebook group. And what does Jeffrey say here?
And if you're contemplating joining the Heart Centered Marketing Club in the Facebook group, I just want to share with you that it is probably the safest group on the internet from a standpoint of there's no promotion and there's no spam, and you're not going to get in there and get on a list of the next seminar and the next workshop and give money. It's about heart-centered people supporting one another in a tribe that's been curated over the years of a place for people to come, be vulnerable, transparent, get support, build their businesses, grow. And no, you don't have to be an Atlas and you don't have to spend money. You just have to be heart centered and want to learn and grow and be a part of a tribe that helps each other to go through this lonely journey called online entrepreneurship. And now you can read what Jeffrey had to say, Joey.
Yeah, actually, I want to just jump on there for 1 second because I want to reference something that Kevin said today, which was really important. And I think it's I love the way he said this, and it's one of the things I've lived by as well. Where, in my private masterminds, one of the things that I say to people is, when you're coming to the mastermind or being considered to join this, your job is to come there to help other people. It's not the primary job is for you to help other people. It's not to come there to get help and take. It's to give. And that's kind of what the Heart Centered Marketing Club Facebook group is about. And so even Kevin talked about it today, is when you're connecting with people or when you're going into a group, whatever, it's more about how can I help other people? So that's what this group is about. And that means that if you come into the Heart Centered Marketing Club, then with an intention of helping other people, not content marketing help. That's not gonna, but just like, how can I serve? How can I answer questions? Or how can I give my insight or experience about something that I know about to help other people? Well, guess what? Everybody else has that same intention, which means that the help you get is amplified by a billion. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, of why it's kind of a different place to be. Now, Jeffrey, you are talking about patience and letting things take time. They need to take. Yes, exactly. Like Warren Buffett said, when I am patient, I end up with 10 times of whatever I thought I could produce and get in my life. Yep, I agree with that too. How could you disagree with Warren Buffett?
I don't think you could. And yeah, when we stay, and I'll come full circle, Joey, from my sarcastic opening. We, as heart centered entrepreneurs, are in an amazing time because everybody's being pushed towards artificial stuff, and it's everyone's pushing away from relationships and transparency and vulnerability and originality and transparency and openness, and it's all do different. It's connect more with people, put stuff out there that's not written by somebody for the sake of writing it. Write something, even if it's 2 sentences of how you feel today, rather than something. We're just in a great time to be more human and serve and help more people in the way in which we show up is heart-centered and caring and really wanting to serve and giving of ourselves and our superpowers and zone of genius to truly help others, to give our value and worth into the market. And the more this AI crap, to me, because I look at it again. My opinion is one day, what happens when it's not there or the power goes out for a week? Then what are you going to do? You're going to
Well, I think
depend.
there's one thing that you said there, Scott, that I want to touch on for a second, and this will probably may lead us into a different area here, but I think it's important that what you just said that you know, going with it made me think about the question because you're talking about giving, like giving and serving and constantly doing that. And for people who are like that, that's part of their DNA, right? And they're constantly giving, constantly serving, but they're not getting anything back. They're not making any money. The business isn't moving forward, all of that stuff. And what I realized there, and I was one of those people, so I know this is to be true, is focus, is lack of focus. So before I'm naturally a giver and whatever, but the business was never building because there was lack of focus. Because there was, this is what I'm going to give and serve in this area. Wait a minute, this isn't kind of working. Or probably not even that, was that it was more of a distraction. I'm giving and serving. Oh, hey, hang on a minute. There's this other thing over here that I can go and give and serve too. I'm going to go do that. And did that and that. And then wait a second. There's this over here I forgot about that I'm good at, and I'm doing that and giving there. So in my mind, all I'm doing is what the person told me, which is you need to give. You need to, and people will reciprocate, and it'll all come back, and all these other things. But it wasn't happening until I said enough is enough, and get rid of distractions, like we just talked about a couple of minutes ago, and rolling the dice and saying this is the thing, and I'm going to give everything, including my energy, my time, my love, my support, everything into this thing, and give there. And that is how it all exploded. And that's bringing you to 5%.
And that's superbly put, Joey, is, you put all your time, effort, energy, focus into that one thing, that one lane, that one path, those guardrails, that train tracks. And no matter what, you head down, you stayed in there and you kept at it. Didn't matter. Oh, that, and all the other paths you could have taken, you stayed with it. And here you are.
Yeah, and so so thank you, Jeffrey, for bringing that up about patience, because that's what triggered that thought. So thank you very much. I think this is for another discussion. Do you think AI will support the instant gratification of society? That's a whole other discussion. We'll leave for another time.
Let's save it for another time. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, let's
Don't get me started on that because, yeah.
let's
I'm a
talk about
little
that
passionate.
another time.
Yeah.
My friend, have a good night. Thank you for being here, and thank you for watching and being here on either the replay or the live. I appreciate you. We appreciate you, and we are here every single Tuesday, 7 o'clock, rain or shine. We are here. So-
You opened funky and you closed it. I'm going to leave it.
Scott, that's it. Any closing words from you?
Rain or shine, we'll be here. I'm good with that.
All right. See you guys later.